Hello and welcome to the Random Thought Show. My name's Jacob Tober.
And my name's Darren McInnes. On the show we talk about anything and everything in fitness, high performance and health.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Random Thought Show.
Hey guys.
Episode 130 today, and we didn't jinx the boomers.
No, we didn't. Good job us.
Thank goodness. I've been since, because we film and then there's a delay and then we upload, I've been stressing so hard. It's like, we talked about it, we were confident we were going to win. Oh no. We won. Beat the Czech Republic. Are into the semi against Spain, which will have happened by the time this episode goes live.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. Good job, boys.
Yeah. They're playing great.
All right. So we thought maybe today we would talk about, we talked about ankle stiffness and ankle bounce, about knee stiffness, that ability to have a kind of slam the brakes on hard with the knees in a way.
Yeah, which we at times have maybe been poor at communicating and saying that that's a very negative thing. I think sometimes we've been in the all landings should be soft category. I don't think we deliberately put ourselves there. I think just our emphasis on glute landings has maybe come across that way.
I think it's maybe the impression that we're allergic to a bouncy sort of stiffer-legged landing, and we're not. It's just there's a time and a place.
Yes, yeah. I think today's a nice chance to unpack both types of landings and talk about when they're appropriate, how to do them right, and the benefits.
Well, let's talk about the soft, stacked and stable. Let's talk about the ninja landings first, and then we can flow into the other stuff, you reckon? Yeah.
Sounds perfect. Let's go to an Iron Edge pro tip first, though, and let's unpack those because that's going to be a big one.
Okay, cool.
Hey guys, it's Jacob here on the gym floor for another Iron Edge pro tip. I'm joined by Pat again, and today we're looking at the Iron Edge plyo boxes. Instead of jumping up onto the boxes, we're looking at jumping off them. So Pat's going to show us 3 types of landing from a drop catch, and we're going to look at those as we go. Each one is pretty much progressive. So level 1 is your basic landing. Soft, stacked, stable, absorbing the energy slowly, trying to spread that kinetic energy across your entire body, glutes, knees, quads, the whole lot. The second one has the same shape, but it's a lot more aggressive. So it's about getting to that same position, that glutey, stacked, stable position, but then being ready to react, move lateral, linear, vertical from that position. The third jump and the most advanced type of landing is your drop catch or your depth jump, where you try and get back off the ground as quickly as you can. Pat, go one more of those. We're looking for stiffness now with landing. So a lot more quad load, a lot more knee load, but we're looking for that rapid, explosive return off the ground. And then the next one on that return is then a soft landing. That last one, quite intense. Pat's using a 45 centimeter plyo box here. I would not go above that height with that. Instead, focus on getting more height on the secondary contact and getting shorter contact time where appropriate. That third one though, like I mentioned, is quite advanced. So that's for your stronger, more explosive athletes. And that's it. That's your Iron Edge pro tip.
My thought has always been that one of the biggest biomechanical crimes in sport, the biggest issues and problems is the way people land. So the inability to absorb the kinetic energy of landing well and be in an active stance and ready to go.
They call it jump, like they call patellar tendon the jumper's knee.
Yeah,
but it's really landing.
It should be lander's knee.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you the Don Bradman story about what was part of my inspiration for the emphasis on ninja landings?
I think I have been told it, but let's share for context.
So I'm going to butcher the stats here. I really should have checked them out before. But basically Don Bradman, one of the greatest, if not the greatest batsman of all time.
One of the greatest athletes, in statistical terms, one of the greatest athletes of any sport of any era of all time.
Yeah. Just an absolutely dominant athlete. He, in his career, averaged 99.9 or something.
99.98.
Something ridiculous.
He needed a 4 in his last ever innings and got a duck. I'm pretty sure I remember that.
That's all he needed
to
average a century. And he amazing amount of runs, and he hit some absurd amount of 4s. But it was like 6 sixes in his entire career. So it's 6. If you're not a cricket follower, is where you hit it's like a home run where you clear the boundary and the ball goes into the crowd
on the full. Yep.
And you get six runs for that. So he hit an incredibly low number of 6s, and of the 4, I think 3 of them were against England, and they were just kind of angry 6s during the bodyline period.
Oh yeah, that's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, yeah. And when he was quizzed on why he had so few 6s. He said, if you don't hit the ball in the air, you eliminate the major way of going out.
Yeah.
And what that means is you don't go for the big slog, so you're not going to swing and miss. It's likely to swing and miss. If you mistime it, it doesn't become a catch for someone. it's a vastly better strategy. So he had all this great eye-hand coordination. He had all these, God-given talents, trained talents, but he also had this strategic superiority. He actually thought about the game and just made a decision early on to get in the habit of not hitting the ball. It was ground strokes only for him.
Which applies a lot less in today's world of T20, which is now the shorter version of the game, which wasn't around when Bradman was playing.
Get away with that,
But like thinking about your sport on that another level, is like, okay, what's the main cause of problem here? What's the most likely way I can do myself in and it's getting caught? How do I avoid that? Well, I only ever learn really good strokes that go straight into the ground and roll.
And so I always thought of it in terms of sport, the major way you're going to get the most catastrophic injuries, your ACL, your patellar dislocation, all those really nasty rolled ankle, all those things, the major way is if you could eliminate bad landings. If you could land like a ninja, land like a cat, whatever you might want to call it, if you could land really well every time, that's the lead domino, that's the big rock for avoiding injury.
Overuse as well, not just those acute ones, but the overuse ones.
And also, if you can do it really well and land in this soft, stacked, stable athletic stance, you are now in a better position to go and attack and do whatever you need to do once you've landed.
So not only are you safer and putting less stress on your joints, but you're also in a better athletic position for the next play.
Yeah, so it's safer and more effective. So we have spent a mountain of time hammering how to land with a glute dominant shape, because that's going to put you in a nice athletic stance, and it enables the glutes to absorb the kinetic energy rather than the knees. And so what is it, 6-8 times your body weight when you land?
Well, the sprinting is 8 times. I think jumping is more like 4 to 6. So it's a little less than with sprinting.
Yeah.
And it depends where you're measuring the forces. But yeah, we're looking at multiples of body weight. So if you weigh 100 kilos, 200, 300, 400 kilos of body weight coming down through your joints as you land.
And the kinetic energy has been transferred into the knees, which probably weren't particularly designed for that kind of force repetitively. No. Yeah. Every now and then, sure, but the repetitive force. And I think you don't realise how important it is until you start videoing hundreds upon hundreds of athletes and seeing just how bad some of the landing strategies are. And we've seen them for female athletes in particular, because they don't practice jumping much, it's worse. Boys tend to be a little bit better at being sort of stable and stacked.
Not always though.
But not always. So yeah, soft, stacked and stable, that ability to make that nice ninja landing that we call it, super important. And we bang on about it so much that I think sometimes people think we think that's the only way to land, and it's not. There are certain times where you want to bounce when you land, and it's quite a different style of landing.
Yeah, across all sports. So that soft position is like getting back into your athletic stance quickly, and you're absorbing using your hips, spreading the kinetic energy across the body. But sometimes though, volleyball's a great example, netball as well, repeat rebounding in basketball. You need to go multiple times in a row, and you don't have time to get back down into your glutes.
You want to kind of pogo back up.
Yeah. And so that's when that idea of the stiffer, more reactive plyometric type landing and then repeat continuous jump is really important.
And I mean, I probably prefer the term a bouncier landing, because I think you could hear stiff landing, you could think it coming down a real thud to the ground with a kind of a stiff-legged heel landing, and it's certainly not that. It's certainly using the elasticity in your calves, elasticity in your quads and your glutes.
I feel that stiffness needs a rebranding, because we talk about stiffness in terms of joint range of motion. Like there's stiffness.
That's a negative. My back's feeling really stiff.
My ankles are stiff, things like that. And then we talk about stiffness as this positive quality in terms of a rapid stretch shortening cycle contraction, in terms of your calf Achilles are able to generate stiffness and bounce off the ground.
It's quickly. Like the term needs to be more like sort of power, a hybrid of power and elasticity.
Let's not try.
Power elasticity? No.
Yeah, let's not.
I mean, the classic was we had an athlete here who's the all-time vertical leap record holder, who had crazy bounce. Like he was an elbow to the rim dunker and then some. And you'd watch him land, and he landed with this beautiful – he did not land soft, stacked and stable, because he was coming from such a height that it was too hard to land like that. He would land with this beautiful little bounce that would wash off the kinetic energy.
Like a little skip, kind of like a double leg skip type thing where he had like
like he did this huge dunk and he just a little double leg skip, just one little bounce, just bounce it off and then come down to the ground.
They call that a double contact in plyometric training. Yeah. So getting double contacts in.
So I think the ability to do that is really, really valuable. I think everyone can benefit from that. And also what you're getting is if you have really good hops, if you've got really good vertical, you're getting the ability to absorb that gently. But it's also going to help you develop that as well provided that you can then take that and translate it in when you go. The issue is, I think, one of the reasons I have shied away from coaching that en masse is you can take a group of 100 athletes, 50 athletes, 20 athletes, and it's relatively easy. If you groove a nice squat pattern, if you teach them all to squat, sitting back, sit back through the heels, use your glutes, drive through the hips on the way up, and then take that pattern of squatting and then apply that into the landing. It's relatively, and we started with jumping over a postage stamp.
So we're now talking back about the soft landing.
Yeah, that's relatively easy to teach. I think the teaching of that stiff or bouncy landing, so it's relative. So to back step, it's the soft, stacked, and stable ninja landing is easy to teach, and if someone gets it a bit wrong, that's okay. You just continue to work on that.
Yeah, there's a wide margin for error on those landings.
Yeah, it's a callback to last episode. It's pretty pokey-okey. You can get it wrong, and it's still actually pretty right.
In terms of a motor skill point of view, if we're looking at teaching now.
Yeah, teaching and also just the biomechanical consequences of a stuff-up. Whereas with a stiff landing, if you land and you keep your knees too stiff, for instance, you can hyperextend your knee. You can send a lot of jarring forces into the knee. There's actually meniscus, there's more that can go wrong. It's harder to get right and more can go wrong.
And you've got to earn it a bit more too. Like, you don't want to take athletes who haven't spent any time doing those type of landings, haven't spent any time developing the skills, the strength, the coordination to do that, and then go, all right, today we're pogoing up and down the court and we're doing depth work and drop catches and all that sort of stuff. If you haven't learnt that yet, then that's when the margin for error is quite narrow now.
And also, I guess the other thing is that people in general, if there's a continuum from landing with a great glute dominant, soft stacked, stable down one end, and there's that overly heel based, ugly thud where you're like, oh, how much do you weigh? Like, you got a 70 kilo athlete that sounds like they weigh 110. Most people tend to be a bit on the too stiff side already. So it's a harder thing to coach. You kind of tend to want to coach away from the main negative trait.
This is my big problem with the stiffness terminology. How we'll keep working on that that hybrid word. But like,
if you're out there and you've got a good word, I am like, please post in the comments on the Insta.
A positive version of stiffness, please.
Yeah, there might be a word we just completely, like, it's very likely someone will do it when we like forward slap. We're like, right, that was the word.
Something in the realm of elasticity, reactivity. It's something stretch shortening like that.
Elastic potential.
Something along those lines, yeah. Anyway, the point is, like, you talk about that continuum. So you've got soft and sort of stable and glutean. I suppose you call it conservative landing, where you're trying to absorb and wash off that energy safely.
I hate conservative landing. I hate that term. What a better term than that?
Well, you've talked about that being a safe landing.
I think an absorptive landing.
Sure. But hear me out here.
Yeah.
On the other end, you've got that. This is the problem with stiffness, is because at that end as well, if you do that stiff landing well, it becomes plyometric and a positive.
Yeah.
So it's not just a linear thing where you've got bad on one end and you've got good up the other, and the stiff, reactive, repetitive, continuous volleyball type jumping is in the middle. It's actually a whole nother.
It's just a whole different skill. Yeah.
So it's not like you need. We'll teach our basketballs to be soft landers and our volleyballs to be this, and he's a stiff lander. We'll teach him to be a glute lander. It's not like with running where midfoot strike is the answer. Like, everyone should be running on their midfoot at top speed because there's less braking forces. There's
in the sub 5K or sub 10K. Yep. Some people above that might heel strike and get more efficiency, and that might work for them. But yeah,
that's opening a whole can of worms in terms of heel strike under the center of mass and cadence and all those sort of things. But anyway, so let's say in general, sprinting 0 to 10 meters, the answer is to run on your midfoot.
Yeah, there's no question with sprinting. Yeah,
midfoot running is the answer. When it comes to landing and jumping, how you go about it, you should have multiple skills in your arsenal. You should be able to jump off one leg. You should be able to jump off a gather step, off a back pedal.
Jump after a perturbation. Someone's shoved you in the air and
be able to land off that.
You're rotating slightly and you stick that landing. Yeah.
Yep. And you should be able to do it with the ball, in defense, in offense. All these different situations. And if you play football and soccer, you should be able to do it, on grass, on uneven surfaces potentially. All these factors mean that the answer for landing isn't as straightforward as just land with your glutes.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember David Hill's spontaneous ACL combustion in a paddock by himself playing for Essendon?
I was at that game.
Were you?
Yeah, I was there.
How old were you?
Uni.
Were you?
It wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
It was first or second year uni, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did it, and I just learned enough about, and I was like, that's an ACL. That is just a big guy coming down on a very straight leg. And so that's that, if we talk about safe absorptive landings versus stiff dangerous landings. That's one of those stiff dangerous landings.
And so that's why, you would be crazy, I think. Let me walk back. That's why crazy is too strong term. But I don't think it's advisable to lead with that quad dominant, stiff pogo, bouncy landing, because what you can do is if you've got someone who's got a bit of a predisposition to an ACL, you can actually magnify their risk. Like in the pursuit of training gains, you can actually magnify their risk of patellofemoral wear and tear or an ACL. And because there's so many different elements of an ACL, but one of the elements is an undesirable quadricep ACL interaction.
Yeah, can you go a little deeper on the hamstring ACL relationship and why the depth of your landing is important there?
Yep.
This will highlight what you're trying to say.
Can we post some sort of a link that shows the quad ACL linkage?
I don't know if we have anything.
Maybe a picture? I don't know. We'll see if we can work something out.
Maybe just talk through it.
Okay. So the ACL runs from the back of the top, from the back of the femur to the front at the top of the shin. And so it's going to pull. So if your quad is pulling hard and your hamstring is not pulling hard, then the quad itself pulls on the ACL because the quad is pulling the tibia forwards and the ACL gets stretched.
So the ACL's job is to stop the tibia translating forwards.
Yeah,
is what it's trying to do.
It's an anti-dislocation.
Yeah, so it's keeping the tibia from sliding forward relative to the femur.
Yeah, and the PCL is the reverse.
Yeah.
So that's why the classic PCL injury in footy was always ruckman goes up and his knee's up, and then the other ruckman collides with his tibia.
Shin on shin.
Shin on shin, and one of the shins moves backwards and pop. You do your PCL.
That's why PCLs are a lot rarer because they almost require exactly that kind of impact.
Or standing on running along and accidentally standing on a basketball.
Oh, really?
Over the years, I've had 3 PCL injuries. I've had 3 different athletes stand on a basketball, and it's the PCL that seems to bear the brunt. Like one of them about 3 weeks ago. But he was okay. Like his muscles kind of locked in, and he was fine and protected. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah. So if you have really super strong quads, if you just did heaps of quad work and heaps of quad dominant landing, and you don't have that hamstring, and the hamstring is supposed to co-contract. So if you want to cut, jump, or move, the hamstring is going to grab onto that tibia and hold it in place, so that the ACL really doesn't have much work to do.
Because the hamstring has the same line as pull as the ACL. So
yeah.
The ACL is the ligamentous passive structure holding that tibia forward. The hamstring, if it's allowed to, should be the active muscle pulling the tibia back.
Active muscular anchor for the ACL.
Nice.
That's how I think of it. And so if you are, it's that anchor is on more tension, the more flexed your trunk is. So if you're dead upright and landing with a really quad dominant stance, then you're pulling on your ACL a lot.
You can do this test at home. So,
yeah.
So if you're standing there, stand up completely tall and then poke yourself in the back of the hamstring, just gently.
And they're just loose.
They're loose.
Yeah, they're slack. Yeah.
And then sit down forwards into your knees into like a very quad dominant position.
Yep.
And you'll feel, do your hamstrings again.
They're still pretty slack. Yeah.
Now do the opposite and sit back into your butt.
So I would say the best way to feel it would be to stand up and do kind of a hinge over, like kind of an RDL sort of thing. Yeah.
Butt back, hips low, like an athletic stance, if you will.
Chest over. And you'll feel that anchor's on. Yep. Yeah. So, I think that as good as the stiff landings are, you want to be doing them with a fairly biomechanically competent, sound athlete, because you do run a real risk of actually, and imagine that you're an S&C coach and you're trying to help athletes beat ACLs and you're doing all this landing stuff.
And improve their verticals, yeah.
Yeah, and you are actually actively increasing their risk profile for ACLs, which does unfortunately happen a little bit, because people will read one thing or go down one path and they won't really see the entire picture.
And so I think, that's nice. So I think the solution in the short term is, instead of looking for your full leg, entire lower body stiff landings, do your low amplitude plyometrics.
Yeah.
Look for ankle stiffness as a teaching tool to progress into full leg stiffness.
Yeah. And a little bit of bounce and get a fair bit of hamstring work under the belt. Make sure they're an athlete that's not quad dominant. I think we got away with it, but I think in early days we were probably guilty of producing athletes that were a little on the quad dominant side. We still had an absurdly low ACL rate, so I think it all worked out okay. But when I look back on it, because we had people doing back squats. We had people doing core lifts, which is our version of a trap bar deadlift. And a back squat is a pretty quad dominant. Even though ours are kind of a gluteus shape, it's still pretty quaddy.
All squats are going to be, at best, 50-50.
Yeah. And then because we weren't doing the straight bar work, because we were doing the core lift, the trap bar work,
Very little RDLs, very little Nordic, very little conventional deadlift. Yep.
I think we were probably slightly overdoing quad work. And